Hello, and thanks for tuning in to On Time Review. I'm your host, Finbar Markey. On today's show, we're going to review the Pandora Papers. We're not going to look very much at the content of the papers, but we are going to ask questions about the motivation behind them. The Pandora Papers were released by the ICIJ, the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, this week, and they self-describe the papers as the largest investigation in journalism history, exposes a shadow financial system that benefits the world's most rich and powerful. It sounds ground-shaking, doesn't it? The Guardian newspaper in the UK is very connected with the ICIJ and the Pandora Papers, and their headline describing the Pandora Papers is "The biggest ever leak of offshore data exposes financial secrets of the rich and powerful." And you would expect that somewhere within the Pandora Papers there would be some information about current world leaders and Western leaders, but it does seem to be devoid of that. The Guardian goes on to describe the Pandora Papers as the secret deals and hidden assets of some of the world's richest and most powerful people have been revealed in the biggest trove of leaked offshore data in history. And I think it's important that we're clear about what is meant by leaked data. When WikiLeaks leaked data, or when whistleblowers contacted WikiLeaks, they put the data out raw for everybody to access, for all journalists around the world to be able to access, and for citizens to be able to seek out those sources themselves to confirm the facts or otherwise. The ICIJ and the Pandora Papers and the Panama Papers before them in 2016 does not do that. Instead, the alleged data leaked by whistleblowers is given to mainstream journalists, chosen journalists from different countries who themselves sift and filter through it and decide what's to be published and what's not to be published. So from that point of view, it isn't WikiLeaks, it's far from WikiLeaks, and one might even be tempted to think that it's an attempt at replacing or creating a sanitized type of WikiLeaks. Just to go back to the Guardian description, branded the Pandora Papers, branded by the ICIJ, the cache includes 11.9 million files from companies hired by wealthy clients to create offshore structures and trusts in tax havens such as Panama, Dubai, Monaco, Switzerland and the Cayman Islands. I noticed that the Guardian doesn't mention the Irish Republic there. They exposed the secret offshore affairs of 35 world leaders, including current and former presidents, prime ministers and heads of state. They also shine light on the secret financial deals of more than 300 other public officials, such as government ministers, judges, mayors and military generals in more than 90 countries. And again, as I say, that all sounds very exciting, but there are a number of concerns or red flags for me in relation to the Pandora Papers. One of the red flags is that the focus seems to be principally on Russia and Russian billionaires and trying to associate or conflate those Russian billionaires and their hidden but not necessarily illegal money with Vladimir Putin of Russia. And there seems to be a strong element of Russia baiting, and it fits very neatly into the current US, CIA and NATO, UK and indeed the EU narrative. So from that point of view, it does seem to be serving a purpose for Western leadership at the moment. The other focus was on the King of Jordan, and it's notable that the King of Jordan in the last few weeks has been in talks with the government of Bashir al-Assad in Syria and are negotiating with them. And I think this has peeved off Western leaders, NATO leaders and the United States, and maybe that's a reason why he has been mentioned in the Pandora Papers. I'm not the only one to have my doubts about the ICIJ and the Pandora Papers. John Pilger the other day put out a tweet saying the ICIJ, which leaked the Pandora Papers, reportedly identified 336 corrupt politicians, but failed to find a single corrupt American politician. The ICIJ is supported by the Ford Foundation, George Soros and its links to USAID and the State Department. And as I understand it, a number of billionaires have given their backing to the Pandora Papers as well. So it's all starting to look a little bit iffy that there's something rotten in the state of Denmark. But even in 2016, when the Panama Papers were first released, I had my doubts. And the reason I had my doubts was that the ICIJ have two associate Irish journalists, or members that are Irish journalists, who I presume are given this data to filter through. And one of them is a Mr. Paul Williams. And Paul Williams is a self-described crime journalist, and he works within mainstream media. And he has been accused over the years of being a puppet and a tool for the Irish police force and the Irish state in terms of his journalism and his reporting. And this culminated a few years ago with the Sergeant Maurice McCabe fiasco or scandal, in which Garda whistleblower, or an Irish police force whistleblower called Sergeant Maurice McCabe, there was a serious campaign of character assassination carried out by the senior management of the police force of the Garda Síochána in the Irish Republic against Maurice McCabe, creating some terrible accusations against him. I won't repeat them here. And Paul Williams was one of the funnels or the amplifiers of those rumours. Here's a headline from the journal.ie around that time. Paul Williams denies he was a puppet for the guards when meeting woman who made McCabe allegations. The journal goes on to say, lawyers for Sergeant McCabe said that news reports by Williams were intended to increase pressure on Fianna Fáil leader Micheál Martin to meet with Miss D. Williams wrote a series of articles in early 2014. After he interviewed Miss D, Sergeant McCabe was not named in the articles. It was deceiving the reader into believing that you were a journalist reporting on events when in fact you were orchestrating events, Michael McDowell for Sergeant McCabe asked the witness. I wasn't orchestrating events, I've done it before and I'll do it again for people wanting to meet politicians. She wanted to be heard, Williams said. He said that she did not know the substance of Miss D's allegations before he met her. I personally, and it's my opinion I'm giving here, I have doubts that he wasn't aware of the substance of the allegations. But irrespective of that, he amplified those allegations. He didn't name Sergeant McCabe specifically, but anybody who would have been involved with Garda Síochána or involved in the news in Garda Síochána would have known who they were talking about. So the Pandora Papers would appear to be sending raw data from whistleblowers who are at times putting their careers and possibly their lives in jeopardy to get this data out, and it's been given to journalists for whom there have been a lot of questions in relation to their motivations in the past. All that said, bringing all that evidence together, I think I'll be sticking with WikiLeaks. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Please like and share this video.